What if I told you the most important place in the next geopolitical era isn't Taiwan, isn't the South China Sea, and isn't even the Middle East? It's Greenland, a frozen island with fewer than 60,000 people. By the end of this documentary, you'll understand why the world's biggest powers are suddenly competing over one of the coldest places on Earth. Maps often distort Greenland, making it look like an isolated, empty white wedge at the top of the world. But to military planners, this island is the center of the Northern Hemisphere. Physical geography remains fixed, even as global priorities shift. Greenland sits directly between North America, Europe, and the high Arctic, commanding the primary airspace and sea lanes that connect them. To its southeast lies the GIUK Gap, the narrow maritime corridor running between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom that controls naval access to the Atlantic Ocean. Overhead, the shortest flight paths between Washington and Moscow cross directly over Greenlandic ice. For decades, whoever controlled this high-latitude vantage point controlled the early warning networks of the Western world. When Germany occupied Denmark in 1940, Greenland became a security vulnerability. Danish diplomat Henrik Kaufmann bypassed his captive government in April 1941 to sign an agreement granting the United States defense rights. The U.S. Coast Guard established the Greenland Patrol to secure local waters, while new meteorological stations provided forecasting data for Allied aircraft and convoys crossing the North Atlantic. This wartime footprint became permanent under the 1951 Defense of Greenland Agreement. As the Cold War intensified, the Arctic became the shortest strategic missile route between the United States and the Soviet Union. Washington constructed Thule Air Base, placing early warning radar systems directly beneath the polar flight paths. The risks of this nuclear alert network became clear in January 1968 when a US B-52 bomber carrying 4 thermonuclear weapons crashed on the sea ice near Thule. In 1919, operational control of the northernmost American military outpost shifted from the Air Force to the newly created U.S. Space Force. In 2023, the site was officially renamed Pituffik Space Base, honoring the local Greenlandic name. The installation serves a precise, functional chain: detect, track, communicate, and inform. Here, Space Delta IV's 12th Space Warning Squadron operates a massive phased array radar that scans the high-latitude skies. This sensor network monitors orbital objects, tracks satellites, and watches the polar routes for incoming ballistic missiles. Yet, detection is different from interception. Pituffik does not house defensive missiles, and it does not function as an impenetrable shield. Instead, its radars feed raw tracking data into North American defense networks to buy commanders precious minutes. Today, those minutes are shrinking. The development of hypersonic weapons, which fly at lower altitudes and maneuver rapidly, has compressed warning times. When missiles can change course mid-flight, tracking them from the top of the world becomes more difficult and far more essential. On March 15, 2026, the Arctic winter sea ice maximum reached just 14.29 million square kilometers, tying previous record lows. According to satellite data from NASA, Copernicus, and the National Snow and Ice Data Center, the average annual maximum ice extent has shrunk by 12% since the late 1970s. This physical retreat does not guarantee a safe, open ocean. Instead, it alters the operating environment. A longer seasonal window makes Baffin Bay and the Labrador Sea temporarily accessible to research vessels, commercial shippers, and military patrols, yet the region remains volatile. Reduced ice exposes waters to violent polar storms, shifting flows, and extreme winter darkness, while local emergency response infrastructure remains severely limited. On a map, Arctic shipping lanes look like an obvious shortcut. A voyage from Europe to East Asia is 40% shorter than the Suez Canal route, saving up to 15 days under perfect conditions. Yet commercial operators view these corridors through operational risk. The Northern Sea route hugs the Russian coast, requiring specialized ice-class hulls. Farther north, the speculative transpolar route cuts across the central Arctic Ocean, bypassing coastal control, but pushing vessels far from rescue infrastructure. Severe weather, shifting ice, high insurance, and a lack of deep-water ports keep these routes volatile. For global logistics, where schedule certainty is everything, the Suez Canal remains the dependable choice. These passages will supplement seasonal cargo, not replace global trade arteries. Which factor will matter most for Greenland's future? Military strategy, shipping routes, or critical minerals? Beneath the ice lies vast mineral potential, but a critical mineral label requires more than geological presence. It signals a material essential for modern technology and defense, yet highly vulnerable to supply disruption. Rare earth elements are needed for high-strength magnets in advanced aerospace systems. Graphite serves as the essential anode material in battery supply chains. Nickel and copper connect directly to electrical grids and vehicle manufacturing, while zinc supports industrial infrastructure. Potential uranium deposits add a highly sensitive energy and political dimension to any development. However, turning these underground reserves into viable commercial operations remains a massive challenge. A deposit is not a functioning mine without roads, deep-water ports, power grids, heavy financing, skilled labor, rigorous environmental assessments, and local political consent. Currently, only 2 mines are active on the entire island. Which factor will matter most for Greenland's future? Military strategy, shipping routes, or critical minerals? 3 major powers approach Greenland with distinct non-overlapping goals. The United States prioritizes continental defense, missile warning, and securing critical mineral supply chains. Russia focuses on northern military infrastructure, strategic submarine operations, and absolute control over the northern sea route. Meanwhile, China officially describes itself as a near-Arctic state, combining polar research with long-term infrastructure and economic investments. While these distinct strategies do not guarantee immediate conflict, they place Greenland, alongside Denmark and NATO allies, at the very center of 3 divergent global ambitions. While global powers map Greenland as a strategic chessboard, 57,000 residents face the reality on the ground. Greenland is an autonomous territory within the Kingdom of Denmark. Under the 2009 Self-Government Act, the local parliament in GIUK controls domestic affairs, while Copenhagen retains responsibility for defense and foreign policy. This act recognizes the right to self-determination, but true independence requires fiscal capacity and economic sustainability. Today, the fishing sector remains the lifeblood of the economy, anchoring local livelihoods and traditional social structures. Large-scale mining projects could generate the revenue and jobs needed to support independence, but they also bring environmental risks, cultural disruption, and pressure on coastal settlements. For the Inuit majority, the choice between resource extraction and environmental protection is a direct political struggle over sovereignty, defining whose consent gives a project legitimacy and who bears the ultimate consequences. This internal debate shapes every foreign investment, ensuring that local communities are not merely the background to great power strategies. American attempts to purchase Greenland span from the 19th century to a post-World War II proposal, resurfacing again in 2019. Historically, military partnership has proved more viable than ownership. Today, Greenland sits at a global intersection of technology, climate, energy, and national security. Yet, resources do not equal automatic influence. Under international law, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea regulates maritime claims through scientific consensus, not political declaration. More importantly, no foreign strategy can bypass the self-determination of the Greenlandic people. Greenland did not suddenly become important. The world simply caught up to its strategic geography. Next, we track how the opening of the Arctic is reshaping global power. Subscribe to follow our next investigation. Today, as the ICE thins, the global map is being redrawn. Greenland's future will not be dictated by distant empires, but by the harsh, enduring geography that has always defined it. In this new polar epoch, the gateway is open, and the world is rushing in.